You ever lost a wheel? You ever lost a... Yeah! You ever lost a wheel driving down the road? Stay tuned to find out why it happens and, more importantly, what you can do to prevent it. When it comes to lifting your truck, there will always be a crowd of people who think that it's just useless. You know the guys, the ones who are always saying that lifting your truck will ruin it, and it'll tear the suspension up, and it's gonna chew through tires like your Uncle Larry chews through Kodiak wintergreen because he can afford Kodiak wintergreen and isn't stuck chewing, Grizzly. But hey, it is what it is. And of course, they're gonna tell you it's gonna ride rougher than a lumber wagon on the Oregon Trail. But are they right? I'm Dustin, Dusty.co on Instagram, and in today's video, we're gonna be having a quick little chat about whether or not a lift kit will truly ruin your truck. Now, if this is your first time stopping by the channel, then hello. Welcome to Custom Offsets, and hey, thanks for stopping by. If you're new to building your truck and you haven't yet, feel free to hit that subscribe button so you can learn more about building your truck. We talk about all sorts of things like wheels and tires and lift kits and ball joints and stuff like that. It's actually kind of fun. If you're not new and you already know what you want, then awesome. We can also help there too. We stock over 150,000 wheels and tires, plus we have a fair amount of lift kits in our warehouse, meaning that you guys can pick up a lift kit from some of your favorite companies, get it shipped to your door in like 7 days with quick delivery. It's awesome. You just order it, and a week later, it's bam, it's there. There's the plug, take it or leave it, into the video. Now, typically speaking, we see somewhere in the neighborhood of 2 to 3 trucks a week come through the shop. When you add that up over the last 8 years that we've been building trucks, that adds up to be a fair bit of trucks and a lot of lift kits that we've seen come through the doors. With all these lift kits, you tend to learn maybe 1 or 2 things about truck suspension and what happens when you lift it, because that's just what we've done. To really understand how a lift kit could ruin your truck, we first have to understand what happens to your truck when you lift it, when that lift kit goes in, right? It's worth a note here that lift kits are going to be a little bit different depending on what type of truck you have, so some of this may not apply to your particular case. However, bear with me, we're just gonna get through it. With that being said, a buzzword when it comes to trucks and lift kits is suspension geometry. But what the fuck does that even mean? While we could get super technical here, what really matters is that suspension geometry is basically the shape of all your suspension components when they sit inside the truck. Imagine if you were under your truck and you took a piece of paper and a pen and you drew a line with all of the control arms and the shocks and the tie rods and the ball joints and stuff like that. That's considered suspension geometry, right? Those are the shapes, right? Things like your steering knuckles and your torsion bars if you're lucky enough to have a GM truck with the independent front suspension like I do, right? That makes lines, and those lines are going to intersect, which causes angles, and those angles are what make your suspension work. Popular measurements when it comes to your suspension geometry are going to be things like caster and camber, toe, right? And of course, the angles of CV axles and, more importantly, upper control arms. Where this really comes into play is that as your upper control arms change in angle, it puts additional pressure on the upper ball joints. This upper ball joint sits in the control arm and essentially just holds the steering knuckle to the ball joint so your wheel doesn't come off flying down the road. The ball joint allows the steering knuckle to turn and flex going down the road as your suspension normally does, because that's naturally how it works as you're going over bumps and stuff like that. However, the increased angle and pressure on these ball joints can cause them to wear out quickly, and in some extreme cases can even cause your ball joints to fail, which snaps the wheel sideways, and then you end up just on the side of the road, the wheel's over to the side, it bangs into the fender. It's a bad day. Now, depending on what company you're going to be looking at for your lift kit, there may be a chance that it's going to come with new control arms. These new control arms are usually fabricated, right? They're welded steel versus, the old stamped steel or aluminum upper control arms that your truck is going to come from the factory. I know the 5th gen Ram 1500s are notorious for having stamped aluminum, plasticky, weird upper control arm, and it's just, there's something. This tends to be the case on some of the more premium lift kits. However, some of the more budget-minded kits may not come with all of those suspension components to replace your factory bits. Take Rough Country, for example, right? Rough Country makes, in our opinion, some of the best budget lift kits that you can buy on the market today. Their Vertex coilover kits are good, and even their standard spacer lifts are just awesome. They have a ton of lift kits available that fit pretty much every truck out there. However, because they are a little bit more on the affordable side, they're typically going to reuse some of your factory parts like your control arms and ball joints and things like that, meaning that if your ball joints already have some wear on them, they're gonna wear out even quicker than before. Good news here is that there are options if you're looking for a more budget-minded kit. Companies like Kryptonite make replacement front-end parts for a ton of trucks that are actually made to be used and abused. The guys over at Kryptonite are pretty much like us, and they love shoving 14 wides on their trucks, and so they know that you're inevitably gonna do the same, so they build their products so that way they can just take that abuse. Plus, all the Kryptonite parts come with a lifetime warranty, meaning that if for some reason you would happen to break one of their products, they'll just replace it for you. On top of ball joints, there are also a few other things to keep in mind when it comes to lifting your truck. While not technically related specifically to the lift kit itself, we know that with a lift kit comes bigger wheels and tires, and that means that you're going to want to look at tie rod ends and wheel bearings. The additional stress from 16 wides and 40s can cause additional wear and tear on tie rods, as these new larger wheels and tires, they definitely weigh more than stock and they take more pressure to turn. This is especially true if you have a GM truck, which are notoriously known for having weak tie rod ends and doing the old ka-chow like Lightning McQueen after you do a boosted launch. The good news here is that, again, Kryptonite's gonna make a ton of products that can help. Their Death Grip series of tie rods is legit some of the beefiest that we've ever seen, and they're all covered under that same lifetime warranty. Regardless if you're just putting a leveling kit on your truck or if you're looking to go like full-on 16 wides on a SEMA show build, chances are you're going to need to take a peek at the front end of your truck. And if you do and you find you need some parts, then hey, hit us up at customoffsets.com. We actually stock a bunch of the Kryptonite stuff so that you guys can get it in just a few days. All you gotta do is head to the website, sort by quick delivery, and you can get your truck back on the road in no time.